Alright guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you for tuning in to Johnny's Motorized Bicycle. So, what do we got going on today? Well, first, as always, if you could, please hit the like and the subscribe. It's completely free. And most important, just leave me a comment. Good. Made that short and simple. I just want to get into what I'm doing. So, what am I doing? I'm inside because it's dark out. Don't judge me. So, I'm building a new bike. I don't know if you could tell. This, not sticker. Okay, JMB, Johnny's Motorized Bicycles. Johnny's Motorized Bicycles. What do you think? Pretty good. So I've done a couple things. These are hydraulic. So they're still a line pull, but it's all internal mineral oil and stuff, so it's hydraulic. So they should be really nice clamping. I went with purple accents, pedals. So these are the stock bars that went to this frame. This fork is not the stock fork that went to this frame. It went to another bike that actually came with this crank and the seat post. Basically, I'm combining two bikes into one. They're both from Kent Bicycles. Genesis, I believe is the name. Basically, I wanted a way to have rotor brakes on my new bike. So I'm retiring Tweaker from being my daily, mainly because, you know, I've had it for a while and just celebrated, but I just had it for a year anniversary. The notification came up on Facebook when I posted it and finished the bike, so just past a year. So that's pretty much the longest time I've had any one single bike as my daily. Granted, I've had it out of commission for, you know, a couple of weeks here, a week there, but for the most part, it's been a solid year. With that being said, I want to change it up. I enjoy building the bikes, and I've never actually made myself a really super custom bike. Like Tweaker is nothing more as far as custom goes than a paint job, and I threw some rims on it, which are really nice, and I like everything going on with it, and it runs really good. But that's probably going to be my new test mule, basically my backup bicycle. I'll probably still ride it once in a while just to make sure, you know, it stays running and all. But for the most part, it's going to be retired and just be testing with it. So what do I got going on? So like I said, this is from a different bike. This is from a basic mountain bike. Now these are 29-inch wheels that go on this bike and this bike, which is now one bike. I never had a 29-inch wheel. So what I did here is, these are the original handlebars that went to this bike, the actual frame that I'm keeping used. Problem is, to be honest with you, I didn't even realize it was a thing. I've never really had a new bicycle. I've always had old bicycles. So I painted these, not thinking about it. These are 1 inch all the way. The whole tube is 1 inch as opposed to where the neck is. There's a new neck I bought. I needed something so I didn't have to slide one down over it, so I got with a double bolt to clamp. So it's 1 inch all the way. The grips don't fit over this. Now, I'm sure I could fit the one grip, the non-throttle side, on it, but that doesn't do me any good for the rest of it. When this was on the bike, it was slightly, I don't know, it was okay, and I like these kind of bars, but it has a little bit more, look how much my wrist has bent. It has a little more angle than I would like. I would rather it be more straight barred, okay? Also, I don't like how far back it puts me because I'm so big. Even though this is a big frame, I still want it to be up farther because I stretch out. So these handlebars are no good because even if I was to just deal with what it is, I can't fit the grips on. So I did buy a pair of bars, and they never look like they do in the picture. Like, they're just not right. So I found a pair of bars that was getting thrown out. These are just your basic, you know, BMX bars. These will fit the throttle and what have you. These are also steel, which is good. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them off, probably down here somewhere, right above this, or maybe I'll cut it here and cut this weld out. I'm not really sure. It depends how this weld is, if this is just a bar that's welded to the outside or if it actually goes through. I don't know. I'm going to have to cut it off here, see how it is. I'd like to get about that far down if possible. Maybe here, and this still have this, like this would be good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these bars so that they're the right angle, okay, and they can fit the grips, and I'm going to put them on here. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm probably going to cut the bars off somewhere around here, right after the bend, and I'm going to put these bars like this, except imagine it inside the tube and welded all the way around. And that will give me my straight bar. Still brings it back because of the rake. See how it rakes? So it would still give me everything I want. And then I could use my bars that I painted to match the frame oh so nicely, and I don't have to worry about getting different bars. So the bars I bought, useless, but is what it is. YouTube channel, also, you can hear the edge of the paint, but that's not stickers underneath, the whole thing. I think it came out pretty nice. I don't know if you can see it. I used the same metallic that I use on the actual frame. Now what it is, it's a black base coat Well, this is first I did a silver base for where I was going to have the name exposed. Same with here and here. So I sprayed it with silver. See the can of silver in the back there? And then what I did is I put stickers, letter stickers over it. I painted it black, and then I painted the color shift. Then I pulled the stickers off, and then I clear coated it. So there is 4 layers: base, shift, silver, clear. Yeah, 4. So there's 4 coats on this thing for the most part. Okay, now, since that's why I wanted to use these frames, is it had the mount already built into it for a rotor. I actually spent money on this bike, like the components, to make it better, and I'm going to do a lot of custom stuff, because like I said, I never just put my love into the bike I ride, you know, other than put it together and then I just take care of it. So I wanted to make something that's like more me. I just think this is definitely more me, with the bright colors and the pizzazz. I'm definitely a loud person. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a loud person, so I really like the lime green, and I toned it down with the color shift colors. So, and then for the accents, I went with purple. So I got myself a nice big pedal. Look at that, 4.5 inches or something. So nice big pedals, purple, and they got the nice little grips. These actually match good. This purple, look at the color, like whatever. $50 for the full set. Came with these rotors, and it should look good. I'm really excited about the whole hydraulic. And so I also bought special pads. They're coming. They should actually. I think they came in today. I just didn't go pick them up because I'm gonna go to Mar to pick the stuff up. They're like for heavy set people or downhill racing. They're Sintered. I've never heard of them before. It's not the brand, it's the type of pad. Sintered. Sintered. S-I-N-T-E-R-E-D. Sintered. Never heard of it before. And then the step below that was ceramic, and then the basic resin pads. I think these come with resin pads, if I'm not mistaken, which will burn out really quick. Ceramic are supposed to be really good, but then the sintered is supposed to be above them for racing. What it does is it takes longer for a break-in period, and they stay in the heat more, supposedly, and it puts it back into the rotors or something like that. But it's a much harder compound, so they last longer. And because I'm near 300 pounds, plus the bike, and you know, I'm gonna have a basket on here, a bunch of other stuff that you didn't even get to see yet. I got almost a full 2 gallons of fuel going on here, special tank, all kinds of stuff. So I'm excited about this. The first time I actually started recording, I didn't show any of the painting because you guys see me painting. Who really wants to watch paint dry? I don't. I didn't want to do it, so I'm definitely not going to record it. Anyway, let's get back to what we're actually here for. Ooh, it's hot in here. Look at them, sweating. Okay, so I like the rims I have on Tweaker a lot. Okay, they are by far the best rim ever used. Okay, I've used tons of spoked rims. I've never had a 12 or 10 gauge spoked wheel, but I don't want to say definitely. It is bigger for sure, but when you ride as much as I do, when you weigh as much as I do, and when then on top of all that you tow as much stuff as I do with the trailer, and you carry an extra 50-pound backpack every day with you, so there's a minimum of 350 pounds on my rear wheel at all times. Anytime I go out anywhere with the bike, there's 350 pounds on the bike at minimum. That's not even really counting the fuel, and there's probably there's more than 350, I bet. I bet it's closer to 375 every time I take the bike out. And the regular basic mag wheels that you get from Bike Berry, heavy duty or not, they don't. They just break. I don't trust them. The spoke wheels, they do work. Now I'm sure the 10 gauge would last a lot longer than the 12 gauge. Basically 12 gauge is their standard wheel. I go through 12 gauge spoke. Well, I mean, I've put new spokes in and literally broke them in the same day, and then I've had wheels that last me, a good 2 months before I break a spoke. So, what would I get out of the 10 gauge? 6 months? Okay, cool. 6 months. I got over a year out of these wheels, the ones I got on Tweaker. Now, these are not the exact same wheels as Tweaker. These I like a little more. Same basic design. They're not a quick release, so I got a straight through axle. This is a little wider, and it also has an angular part. It's about the same thickness in the center, definitely out on the edge the same, but because it's a little thicker. So these are 29s. Actually, these are 700Cs. So I bought 700Cs because I couldn't find 29-inch rims like this that I wanted. The ones I did find were insanely expensive, but these are the exact same ones as the ones on Tweaker, besides a little bit of a design difference. The only difference is the ones I got for Tweaker when I bought them, they were for a bike that has rotor brakes. Okay? I use them as, side pull brakes, rim brake. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. They work good, but the ones I had were designed to accept a rotor. These are not. So I know it looks like it was, but it's not. this is all me. So these were the same color as this. They were completely covered, and they had a slight like angle like this. I should have recorded it, but I didn't think about it. So these were not flat. So I flattened them all out by hand. It was very hard and time consuming. I still have one more, if you see right there, see how that one's still not drilled? These are all drilled. This one's not drilled yet. So I still got to drill that one. And then I'm going to tap them with M6 1.0, and it should be good. I believe the normal is an M4, maybe? I think the normal bolt you put through them is an M4. Could be wrong, but I think it's an M4. Whatever. I'm making them M6 because I like to go a little overkill, you know? With my other rims on tweak, I've never had an issue outside of axle. And unless I'm running a hardened axle, which I think I might have to get custom made, which I'm not going to, but unless I'm running some crazy super duper axle, I just break them. I get 3 months tops per axle. Doesn't matter. 3 months is the most I've ever had out of one axle. Some axles are less, and that's it. So 3 months is, well, no, that's not true. I think I've had 5 months out of one axle. Okay, the most I get out of an axle was 5 months. On average, it's 3 months. I've had them break after a week, you know, if they were questionable, but average is about 3 months per axle. It's not about re-greasing them. Every month and a half, I take my hubs apart and I put more grease in them. So believe me, it's not ungreased, not enough grease. I grease these things because I know what I'm doing with the bike. I'm not saying that I ride more than everyone. I'm just saying that I'm hard on stuff, to say the least. Okay, I'm very, very hard on stuff. Cool. That's not what we're here for. We're not here for a lesson. So I got new tires to go on them. I got the rear one. Now the rear one actually has a setup. See how it's supposed to look like that? What these wheels were actually sold for is for a fixie bike. Now I don't know if you know what a fixie is, but a fixie is one front sprocket, one rear sprocket, and that's it. But it freewheels, or does it not freewheel? It might not freewheel. I think the pedals spin with, the pedals spin with the speed of the wheel at all times. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what a fixie is. It's a fixed speed, and that's it. You can get a freewheel, but I believe a proper fixie is just one speed and the pedals are always moving. That's what this rim was technically designed for. So the rear ones are set up so that I can use them with a rotor, and whatever adjustments I'll have to make from that. The front one, see what I'm doing? I flattened everything out so there's a nice flat surface. I'm drilling it out, then I'm gonna tap it. I went to the hardware store and I bought the bolt. Where they did this, I think on mine, I didn't look, I forgot to look, but on Tweaker, I believe these are all the way up here. So I need to raise this up. Basically, I have to raise it right about there. See how far down it is? See how much I got right there? It's about 17 to 19 millimeters, about 18 millimeters, okay? So I have to make them about 18 millimeters. What I got for spacers are these. These are collets, right? They're a coupling nut. I'm calling them collets, whatever. So what this does is basically for all thread, you put this on one end of the all thread, and then the other piece of the all thread goes into it, and then you connect two pieces of all thread, and boom, you have yourself one big long piece of thread. You know, if you're like bolting something together and stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill them out. These are steel, mild, but that's okay. They are at 21 or 22 millimeters when I measured them, so they're a little bit big, so that's perfect. I can grind them down to what I need them to be, and then boom, I have myself a nice rotor ready to go. So that's just the front wheel. Then we still got to do the rear wheel. I'm really hoping that the rear wheel will work. That's what I didn't tell you. This is 160 millimeters, okay? I have a 203 millimeter for the rear rotor. You guys hear that? These frogs, I gotta do something about that. Because of the rear sprocket, you need to have the biggest rotor possible. Okay, let me get this done and I'll show you when I get the front rim mounted. Once I get the rotor mounted and the brakes basically all aligned and everything, I'll mount the tire and the tube, and we'll see it for the first time with the tire tube all on there together. I can't wait, I'm pretty excited, I'm not gonna lie. I'm really, really stoked to get this bike as a rolling chassis, just so I can sit and feel it. Okay, real quick, I just want to bring you in and show you where I'm at with everything so far. So, the front brake is on, lined up. The front wheel is over there, done. All that has to be done is a little bit of paint work, but I'm not going to do the paint work until I finish the rear wheel and the handlebars that I got to do custom, just because I want to, pretty much, instead of buying a pair or using an old pair. Even though that was originally what I was going to do, but I decided to go this route because I think it will just be all around way better. Okay, cool. Right, awesome. So, we're doing 203 millimeter brake rotor on the rear. I'm not gonna lie, I would like to go with a 44 tooth sprocket, but this setup is gonna be a little faster and easier to do with the 203 millimeter. I have a 222 moped or pit bike brake rotor, but that's going to require a bigger caliper and a couple other things, also possibly a full hydraulic system, and I'm just not going to go that route. The main reason is because the rotor is so much thicker. Now I am thinking about just getting the rotor turned so I can continue using the brakes that I got, and then I just got to make a custom mount for the back to put the bracket on, custom bracket for the back to mount the caliper to, and then I can run a 44 tooth sprocket. The sprocket I am opting to use is a 38 tooth. Now I also bought a 40 tooth, it just didn't come in yet, but no matter what, I think I'm about beat on that anyway. I think the 38, from everything rough lining up, it should match up and just fit with the chain. I had chain wrapped around it and it cleared barely. Worst case scenario, I might have to trim this down just ever so slightly, just a little itty bitty bit right there. Plus I could also just put a washer, which I think I'm going to have to put a washer between the mounting bracket holes and the actual bracket just to give it the spacing I need. The only bracket, okay, I bought a 203, this is a 203 front, okay? I have a 203 rear, and the 203 rear was way too big, way too out there. I used the 203 front and that seemed to get it almost dead on. So I went with this and it seems to be the best. Now, I am planning on using, out of the way, cat, come on, get out of here. Cat's sitting for my daughter. I'm an animal lover, but I'm not necessarily a cat person. Okay, so just temporarily, I mounted the rear derailleur. One thing that I noticed with Tweaker is these derailleurs, you have to mount them with a special bolt that goes in here, so you end up bolting the axle about here, let's say. So you're this far down in the hangers, which isn't horrible. This one actually has a little bit longer hanger than Tweaker, but like with Tweaker, when the chain popped, it ended up ripping this and bending it all the way back and ripping the derailleur off when everything got really bad one day, like last month. I fixed it all, but it is definitely an issue that could be a problem. So to remedy that, I really want to mount the axle as far back in the hanger as possible, which is what I did, but I can't use the stock bolt that they give you. So what I did is I just drilled out the hanger, because the hanger is just flat aluminum, you know, TIG welded in and stuff, one from the factory. So it's just a big piece of billet basically. So I just drilled through it right there at the edge. Then I'm able to get the hanger all the way back so I can use the entire dropout, and that means I can use the full dropout on this side. Cool. So this is the bracket I'm thinking about using. Still might use, not 100% sure. Now this is what holds the bracket. See these two holes? They go in there, and basically what it does is this holds it like this so that you can put your Now the problem with that is, see how I got to take this off every time I want to take the rear wheel off. Well, if I'm in a rush and I get a flat tire, which, let's face it, I get flat tires constantly, I don't want to have to disassemble the brake bracket and all this. I want to be able to just slide the wheel off and go. So the only option I can come up with then is I have to make the bracket line up so the bracket just goes in there. So the axle bolt basically holds the bracket, the majority of it. This, which would normally be right over here, because this would be like this, okay, so these holes would be here. That holds the thing from moving back and forth, but the majority of the weight is held by the axle bolt. So what I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking about putting it like this so that the axle lines up, and then using one of these or both of these, I haven't decided yet, and running a piece of aluminum or steel or something out to these two bolts so that when I take the wheel off, this supports it. So it would be supported here, and I can take the wheel off without doing anything. The rotor will just slide right out of the brake caliper. I don't have to worry about any of that extra nonsense. I'm also thinking about ditching this altogether and making my own, because as it sits, because of the angle, I'm gonna have to bend that straight, because as it sits, the rotor is still slightly lower than like when the bracket sits. So if this was straight, it'd be where I need it to be so I can line up the caliper and the rotor. I can't go any wider on frame. If I go any wider than frame, I'm going to be running out of thread. Now the the rotor was touching, I don't know if you can see it, see these nicks right here and a little bit here. Okay, so when I had it on there, it would just touch the frame. So I needed to space it or bang in the frame. I didn't really want to bang the frame in because I went that route on Tara Reid and it just ended up being a problem. Things cracked down the road. The bike didn't last as long as I wanted it to, especially because this is an aluminum frame as opposed to like Tweaker, which is steel. You could beat on it and it's just mild steel, doesn't matter. So what I did is I put my jack in here and I spread the frame, okay? Originally, before I did that, I had to move it apart just a little bit to get this setup to fit in here stock. So I spread it and got it so that it's just the right length or right width. And what I did is I got a super thin jam nut. But that little bit of a nut, see how small it is? See how tiny this nut is? It's very thin. I think it was 4 millimeters. So I put that in there on the axle and that spread it just enough so that there's no rubbing, and I got about maybe a millimeter, 2 millimeters of clearance on the rotor and the frame. The reason that it's going to take a little bit more than the normal spacing is if I had like just a basic little, cheapo rotor, I wouldn't have as much problems. But because this is a floating rotor, meaning, see these rivets? So the rotor is here on the outside, obviously, and this is an internal insert, and basically what it is, these are rivets, and it keeps it pressed together so that it floats. I believe it's for heat transfer, and that's why they do it like this, but I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that's what it is. So it's a really nice setup, really nice rotor. I think they weren't expensive, maybe 20 bucks, something like that. I gotta look to really tell you the truth, but I got 2 of them. I'm planning on doing a similar thing to Tweaker, although I was originally gonna put 203 millimeters on the front and back, but I decided not to because then I started thinking I can use the purple rotor that came with the kit for this bike on the front and keep the purple theme going. And then I have another 203 rotor I could put on Tweaker when I decommission it and go through it and kind of rebuild it a little bit. So that is where we are at the present moment, except, watch out, kitty. So the way this goes is the sprocket goes on first, then your sprocket adapter, then your rotor goes on the outside. So that's the basic setup. But the thing is I can't run it like this, because if I run it like this, where the sprocket is simply on top of here, that's like 5-6 millimeters too thick, and then I'm back to spreading the frame and trying to put another jam nut, and then I would honestly do all that and put a thicker jam nut in here and that would solve it. But then I'm going to run out of threads on the axle. I want to make sure I can clamp this down good, especially since this nut is going to be the main support for the actual brake caliper bracket. So I need to make sure that this is on there real good, real snug. Now I'm basing it all off of me using that other bracket. But no matter what, that bracket does not dictate where I mount it. If I decide to make a completely custom bracket, I still can, not a big deal, because I can then mount it another way and maybe bolt it into the hangers. I'm not 100% sure now. I will be using at least one of the holes if I don't end up having to make another hole in the hanger for the stock fenders. I am going to be putting the stock fenders on until they break or until I get new fenders, but for now I'm just going to run the stock ones. I would like to get plastic ones and black ones, but for now I got the steel ones still hanging up there. They're painted to match. We're good to go like that. As long as you Loctite them and make sure they're not broken, they're good. But so back on this, so what I got to do is see that hole, or not the hole, it's not a hole yet, but see the line all the way running around, all the way around. I got to cut the center out of this so that this fits over that hub, because this, I already cut these out, see the shape? So I guess on a higher quality wheel you don't have to do this, but on this one, because I buy the cheap ones, I have to. So all I did was dimple this. Now I thought about just cutting these down and shaving them, but I'm planning on drilling these out to M6 1.0 threads. So these are M5 right now, I believe, and I don't want to take the chance of shaving any metal off of these and then drilling it out and needing more space and like being too close to the edge, because this is all that's going to be holding on the complete setup is these 6 bolts. So I went to the store. I went to get a haircut today actually, and since I was passing Advanced, it's right next door, I stopped in and got these. These are M6 1.0 by 30 millimeters. So what I'm going to end up doing, just like the front, I'm going to drill these out all the way down. 30 millimeters should be there by the time I get done going through this and the rotor. 30 millimeters should have at least 20 millimeters of thread in this, which should be more than enough, especially class 10.9, so they're grade 8, they're hardened steel bolts. I'll be able to drill this out, I'll be able to tap this, I'll be able to bolt it all in with these, and it will be more than strong enough to support everything. So I'm gonna cut that out, that's what I'm doing right now, so that it goes over top of this, and it will sit somewhere around here. because then this goes on top of here. See, it's almost perfectly flat right with the actual hub itself, so this is great. Now the sprocket will be underneath of it, attached directly to it with 3 of the bolts through these big ones. I bought the grade 8 bolts for that, so that'd be really nice. And then the rotor goes on top, and the spacing from here to the top here is enough for a chain to fit in nice and smooth. So just wanted to tell you where I'm at and what I'm doing and how far we are. But the front wheel took me forever, I'm not gonna lie. It really did take me forever just to get everything lined up and correct. Remember, I've never done a brake rotor set before. I did it once on Tara Reid's replacement. Kind of. I just put a front brake on. I got really discouraged because I bought the cheapest they had and the pads wore out within a couple minutes, and I just never revisited it because I really wanted to get it on the back wheel because that's where I was most interested in having better braking, and the amount of work it took with where I was when I was living at the shelter was not possible for me to do that kind of work there. So I can do it here now. I have a bike to ride and not worry. That bike's good to go. I have a backup bike in case something happened with that, God forbid. So I can take my time building this bike properly and really enjoy it once it's built. Okay, so I'll show you real quick. So I cut out the center. I just used my cut-off wheel with my Dremel. So not bad. It's a circle enough, right? I used this as the shape. I knew that the outside was more than big enough, so that's good. And then these are the bolts. These are also class 10.9, which is grade 8. So they go through here. Then I got these. These are locking nuts. That's going to go on there. I just have to grind the tops down. Right, the heads go on that side. And then this goes on like this. So we're going to do that. And once this is all assembled and together, I can then put it on the rim. But before I can put it on the rim, I need to drill these out and rethread these. Once those are drilled out and rethreaded, I can mount this assembly onto the wheel, and then I can start mocking up the bracket on the frame and axle, whatever's going to hold the caliper. Once I finish this up and get everything mounted onto the rim, I can put the tire on and the tube on, and then I'll have a completed wheel. I didn't put the tire and tube on because I knew I was going to be, you know, on and off, up and down, playing with it, and I didn't want to have the extra weight and the extra just thickness of it. But once the tire and tube's on, that means this wheel's done. Let me show you the other wheel since I got it here. Other wheel is done, tire is on. It looks so good. It's so butter smooth. Just so you can get an idea. This looks so good. Doesn't that look good? What do you think? Yes, I know it is on my bed, but it is what it is. You work with what you got, you know what I mean? Show you exactly what I did and how I did it. I drilled and tapped all of these to M6 1.0s. I'm going to use 30 millimeter class 10.9 grade 8 hardened bolts. That much thread holding this onto the hub. So the rotor. The rotors are directional. They have to spin this way, like as if they're cutting through the air. Now, when they design these, and the reason it's all scuffed up like that, I'll show you right now. The reason it's all scuffed up like this is because, I don't know if you could still see it, this was all black, just like this, okay? But you see this like little bump out, little bump out, little bump out? This had an inlay shape of this. It had this shape as an inlay on here, which if I was bolting this directly to that and that was the end of it, good deal. Problem is we are not doing that. We are using a sprocket and an adapter. So the sprocket, the adapter is completely flat. It doesn't have that inlaid shape. So I had to grind away the little ears because they were keeping it from sitting flush against it. So now it sits flush, everything is drilled out, everything is cleaned up. We are ready to bolt this together. Okay, there we go. And for the record, this is a 38 tooth sprocket, so we should be good. Okay, real quick, we're gonna keep going on the new build. Well, this is the bike, we got it over here. I put the chain on, rear brakes are on, bracket is on the brakes, everything's good to go, got the tires on. If I had a way to steer the bike, I could pedal it, I could not stop it because there is no cables hooked up. But the rear wheel is 100%, everything is 100% outside of cables. I'm talking about as a bicycle. So these are the handlebars I'm using. okay? I have them in my vise. They do look slightly short, so I cut the ends of the bars off. Why did I cut the ends of the bars off, you might ask? Well, that is probably a good question for most people. Mainly because my grips don't fit over it. So this is 1 inch diameter. The grips only fit over 7/8 is this. So yes, I could definitely buy bars that fit the bike. In fact, I did buy a pair of bars that would have been perfect for the bike, except that I didn't read the print well enough and they were children's bars. So when they got here, they were a little bit too small. So what can you do? So I took a pair of BMX bars and I cut them. I cut the handle part, you know how they normally swoop down and then go up and then back over to the other side. So I cut them off, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on here like this. To be honest with you, the way these bars are, they hold your wrist, these particular ones hold your wrist at a bad angle that I didn't like anyway. I prefer to have my hands out more flat, not totally flat, and I like a little bit of curvature, but not flat bars, because then my wrist goes the other way. I've broken my left wrist 3 times and my right wrist twice over the years, so they don't bend properly anymore. So I'm gonna grind this out so this can fit in there on an angle, something about like that, but then that will let this metal wrap around this, and that will allow me to have something good to weld to, and it will make my bars somewhat custom. Alright, I just want to show you real quick. So this is what I got going on. Like, you know, I'm going to use a baby seat, an old baby seat for the actual rear rack. So I triangulated here where it holds, it bolts down, separate bolt. Oh, I cut my own bolt to the right length, do that little taper so that they screw in real easy. This way you don't have to worry about trying to find a thread or anything. It's just like a regular bolt would do. I did cut out a little loop in the angle aluminum so that I can get this out need be. Everything's tucked in pretty nice. Now the other side doesn't have any of this. It only has this. I'll show you. But I was noticing when I would hold the brake really tight and I would push bike back or forward or pull on the wheel a lot, you could see this flex a little bit. All it had was this piece of metal here, which is what the caliper bracket bolts to, and then this one supporting it mainly as a support for when I take the actual lug off, just so it stays in place. So with this, I have a feeling this is gonna majorly help support this from flexing at all. The whole fact that it is triangulated would make a big difference. So whatever, we'll test that all out. No matter what, that's as good as it's gonna get. I'm not gonna go any better than that. All right, I'm installing the gas tank. Also, I put my basket on long ways. Kind of like the idea of how it doesn't hang off the back as much. If I do it the other way, it's going to hang off about there, which puts more weight on the back of the bike, meaning more weight on the axle, which in turn is just bad all the way around, right? Right. I'm going with this tank. I mean, it still leaves quite a bit of space in here. The gas tank comes with the nipple already built in. This is the nipple that comes with it. And look at the filter, the pre-filter that it gives it. So it all came with it. You just screw it in. Perfect little petcock to put the hose onto, and it should fit on there good. Because I went on top of the frame, look how much room it leaves. So I can tuck, like say I tuck my sweatshirt in there, or I just tuck tools in there for when I go for a bike ride. I don't have to bring my backpack then. Okay. First time I'm opening up this motor since it stopped working on me. I don't know. It was running real good. Lots and lots of power. Very impressed with it. And then it just you know, stopped doing anything. As soon as you pop this, the head is definitely all chewed up. Looks like something took a bite out of it, doesn't it? Now, I remember when I put this in here, I believe part of the skirt was missing, but not the entire skirt. In fact, maybe it was just this side of the skirt that was missing, not this whole thing. It can go like a couple strokes and then all of a sudden it binds up. Like there, it just bound up again on me. So there's obviously something down in there. Now I'm gonna take it apart. Hopefully there's something in the clutch, but I highly doubt it. So unfortunately, I gotta crack the motor apart. Since I'm cracking the motor apart, I'm now thinking I should just put a new cylinder on. The cylinder still ran when I stopped using it. The motor still ran. I just knew something was wrong and it was not running right and it was very poor performance. Of course, the piston rings were seized inside the ringlands and all that, so that doesn't help. With a new piston in there, it should be completely decent. Not fine, but completely decent. But since I'm going through all the work of completely stripping this apart, it makes me think that I should just throw another cylinder on, because at this point, why not? I don't know. We shall see. But I gotta say, I love the look of this bike. Man, I hope it all comes out really well. I'm also thinking, you know, I got the new MZ65 pipe. I really want to put the MZ65 clone on, but I don't want to have all that noise that comes with it. I do have silencers, but I wonder if I could mount the silencer to this. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. First, can't do nothing if we don't have anything to silence, so let's get the motor fixed. I want to show you where we're at and what we did to make this work. So, we got the MZ65 cologne on, because you know I don't want it to be really loud. So I extended the regular like heater hose, radiator hose from the MZ clone to a pipe. This pipe is actually from my handlebars. The handlebars that I cut, I used to come off like, you know, regular beach cruiser handlebars, and then I put the other, welded the other ones in. So that's why it is painted the same color as the bike, which kind of worked out awesome if you ask me. Now, how restrictive this is going to be, I don't really know. I also zip tied it here. That is technically temporary, but I have it just coming out the back. I really like the look of it. All in all, I think that is freaking awesome. Next step is I need to put a carburetor on. Once the carburetor is on, I can run the throttle cable, obviously, and once the throttle cable is run, I can zip tie all the wires or all the cables, and then the only thing left to do is run a chain and, oh, a kill switch. I gotta do a kill switch. I don't have to, but I'd like to have a kill switch. So we're gonna rig that up just basic until I figure something a little more custom. But all in all, guys, I think it looks awesome, and I'm really stoked about the way the exhaust came out. I really wanted to run the MZ clone, but I don't like it being crazy loud, so with the silencer, I think it should be money. I can't wait to try this thing out. All right, let's get the carburetor on neck and then clip everything down, and then chain, then test drive.